Hello, my name is Aaron. I have I don't want to give it away. I have I guess it would be like a video essay. It's kind of a deep dive on a character who have always been and have been thinking about today. From one of my favorite book series of all time, Harry Potter. I don't know which direction that's going to be legible. You can probably tell what it is. But Harry Potter. This is my new book box set. It's really cool. The books have like some great illustrations. The one problem I have with it is like I understand that box sets need to be tight so that the books don't fall out, but it's hard to get them out. But yeah, the illustrations are like really good. That's a cool one. This is the last book. It's Harry and Voldemort facing off. And yeah, I've been thinking about Snape, and I've analyzed Harry Potter a couple different times in classes and things, and I'd never really analyzed Snape so deeply. And he's a really interesting, and I think probably the most well-done character in all of the books. So I just want to talk about him a little bit. So Severus Snape, potions master, eventual defense against the dark arts master at Hogwarts, is a kind of a tortured and very multifaceted character. He kind of enters the book as this really kind of just grumpy, grouchy professor, not super nefarious seeming. I mean, no one really is in the first book except at the very end when you find out that evil exists, or that the evil that people had thought no longer exists and always had existed. It was just kind of hidden. But yeah, you start to find, and there are some hints as to Snape being evil in the first book, but really in the first book and even like the subsequent books, Snape is just kind of this unlikable guy, unlikable professor, kind of the mean, grumpy professor that nobody really likes except the people who are in his own house, because he shows a bit of favoritism. But yeah, it's his arc though is I think one of the better character arcs in any series of books, really. And he actually has a really unique character arc. It's not one that I've seen before, and maybe I have, I just can't really remember, but it's not one that I can recall to memory quickly. But it's kind of this this victim of unrequited love, who kind of lets that, not necessarily just the unrequited love, but also the turbulence of like his childhood and of his upbringing, the bullying he experienced as a child. He kind of lets that dictate his outward personality, but he still kind of has the capacity to do good. And he falls off of the path of good for a while. That's how he in the beginning, that's how he falls into the good graces of Voldemort, and how he's able to eventually choose, or not necessarily choose, but be successful on the path of good. So he starts as a Death Eater, and not necessarily starts, but it's kind of where his arc. Well, I guess his arc begins in the very beginning, which you don't learn till the last book, but it begins with you finding out that he has known Lily, Harry's mom, for forever, and he kind of fell in love with her, and he's kind of the reason that she found out that she was a witch, and they had this really good relationship as kids, and were good friends. Then they went away to school, and you just kind of make new friends in new places, and sometimes you don't necessarily make time. Old friends kind of get phased out, whether for good or bad reasons. It's just kind of something that happens. and this happened, and it seems to have really hurt Snape. Also, Snape was experiencing like a lot of bullying in school. He was kind of a weird, kid, and it seems like he didn't have a great time in school, and this kind of informed his choices after school, which were to become a Death Eater, and eventually, and he just kind of goes down that path until he finds out that Lily and James, Lily's husband, who was kind of a tormentor of Snape in school, that they are being targeted by Voldemort because of their child, Harry, who is prophesied to be this chosen one, the one who can kind of relinquish evil, or this specific evil from the magical world that is Hogwarts, and just the world of magic and as a whole. And so he targets them, and Snape finds that out, and he kind of seeks out the help of Dumbledore and protection of them. And Dumbledore doesn't really fail. It's more of a failing of a friendship that Lily and James thought they had. They put their faith in the wrong person, and that person kind of double-crossed them when the time came. And so, yeah, Lily ends up dying. James ends up dying, and Snape is really hurt by that, but he's also, it also awakens him to the force that he is, what would you say, like accomplice to, that he is a part of. As a Death Eater, he's essentially does the bidding of Voldemort. So he learns that Voldemort really has no mercy, and he might have known that, but until it really hit home with him and affected someone that he loved, I would guess that he never really gave it much thought, and it was just kind of acting on his emotions as a hurt and confused person. But when Lily dies, there's this scene in the movie and scene in the books where Snape is kind of distraught and confessing to Dumbledore all of like his sins and all the bad things that he's done, and that he wants to protect what's left of Lily's legacy, which is Harry, which is kind of his first divulgence back onto the path of good. And he does that to the best of his ability, sometimes in more covert ways. Like in the first couple books, there are a few things that he does that are protections. I mean, he protects Harry in his Quidditch matches, and from Professor Quirrell, and it's well hidden that he is kind of a protector, and not just kind of a teacher who is obligated to protect students, because he is so grumpy and kind of just a mean person, not pleasant. But you find out throughout the book that the entirety of his doings and of his evolution as a character is in protection of Harry. He is working kind of as this double agent for Dumbledore, but Voldemort thinks that he's working as kind of a double agent for him. And in the end, he ends up, it's very well hidden in the fact that he kills Dumbledore. And you never really learn why that is until the last book. And it seems like Snape has kind of not necessarily gone back onto the path of Death Eater, because it's never quite sure whether he's a Death Eater or not, and like what side he's on. And there are some moments where doubt is raised, like in the Goblet of Fire, when Voldemort is just coming back. You catch Igor, Karkaroff, and Snape in the closet, like talking about their dark marks and how they're kind of coming back to life. And yeah, so you kind of get little inklings that Snape. Interesting correlation there too. I don't think it's a coincidence that Snake and Snape are so close together in spelling. But anyway, yeah, you get that little inkling that Snape might not be the most perfect and good teacher. He might not be a good guy, and it's not. And I think it's a great symbolic metaphor. All metaphors are symbolic. That was redundant, but it's a great metaphor for how most people really are. It's not that we're perfect all the time or that we make all the best decisions all the time, but I think in the end, when we realize what doing good actually is and what it means, it's what we'll choose to do. I think Snape was just confused and kind of twisted by the hurt that he had experienced as a kid and through school, um, and he probably confused himself a little bit by placing the blame in kind of the wrong places. You know, he was blaming people for these, and yeah, he was blaming people for these things that happened to him. And it's not necessarily that people are to blame, it's just kind of the way things go. And if you can't accept the way things go, you're always going to be looking for enemies. And Snape seemed to really relish in his enemies. He did not forgive easily. He held grudges strongly. There were not a lot of people that he was even friends with. It seemed like he had a lot of trust issues. And so, yeah, I think that the evolution of Snape is just a really interesting and good character evolution and arc, and I think J.K. Rowling did him really well. It's he's a really, really important character in the book, and that's one of the reasons why Harry ends up naming one of his kids after Snape, is because in the end he's really the ultimate force of good. Because it's one thing to be good and to continue to be good, and that's not bad. That's good. It's good to be good, and it's good to understand that good is good as soon as you can and to try to do it as best as you can. But it's also another thing to pull yourself out from darkness and become good. It's in some ways, I think it's even it's a harder thing to do, because it's almost like an entire it's a personality change, and personality changes, for anyone who's ever tried to induce those, they're difficult and seemingly impossible sometimes, and sometimes it's not even necessarily about. We all have our nagging conscience that tell us when things are right and wrong, and it's not even necessarily about changing your personality outwardly. It's just, are you acting on the good that you know exists in your conscience? And I think that's something that Snape really attempts to do as he moves further through the series. And even, I mean, he's never not doing it. I think he's always acting as this kind of protector, even as he understands. I think he understands the dark path, because there's this really interesting scenario in the book where Draco Malfoy, also a young student, is tasked with killing Dumbledore. I mean, he's like 16 at the time, but Voldemort tasks him with killing Dumbledore, and it's just another example of Voldemort's just relentless evil, and to like destroy the innocence of a child. I mean, 16's almost not child, and in the magical world it's closer to adult than in the normal world, but it's still a child. And to kind of destroy the innocence of a person, of a child like that, with that kind of act, it's a certain type of evil. And Snape kind of protects him. He vows to protect him, and he in the end ends up doing so. And I think he does it because he understands, well, at that point he's acting on the side of good guys, but he also understands the path that doing things like that can lead you down, because he went down a similar path. He joined Voldemort when he got out of school, and I'm sure he did similar things, and he understands, and he wanted to protect Draco from that, even if Draco did not necessarily want to protect himself from that, because he didn't know what he needed protected from. He just thought he was doing the right thing because his dad is a Death Eater and his mom is Death Eater adjacent. She's not really a Death Eater. She actually seems to be kind of she's the first one to buck the system, to be like, okay, what the hell are we doing here? She's kind of just following Draco's dad, who ends up falling out of grace and kind of losing this air of superiority that he has throughout the whole first 5 books or so. First 5 books, and then when he fails in the Order of the Phoenix at the very end, he kind of falls out of the grace of Voldemort and is a bit of a laughingstock until the end, and kind of a whipping mule. Snape is done really well, and I'm going to go on more tangents about that, and I'll do more deep dives on these characters, and more characters and more books I read, because I've been reading a whole bunch lately. I've fallen back in love with reading. In a sense, I'm trying to get through just as many books as I can. I've buried myself in a reading list that's seemingly insurmountable right now, but I'll get through it, and I'm going to bury myself with more books, because I just like to have books around. I love physical things, like records and books and things that you can pass around. Be like, check this out. Severus Snape, he's a great character. He's done really, really well. Harry Potter, give it a read. It has this weird, it's a little bit of I hate calling it a children's book, because it's not perfectly self-evident to me that you shouldn't read children's literature because it's made for children. And this might, first of all, it's well over 2,000 pages of reading, and there's a reason that children are willing to read 2,000 pages worth of this. It's because it's very well done, and it's a good metaphorical story. It's overcoming insurmountable tasks that are changing the world, which is what everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to rule the world. I don't necessarily believe that's true, but I think everybody does want to change the world. We all like to think that we can. And it's not always so clear-cut, as there is an enemy. There is a clear enemy who's doing evil and he needs to be stopped. Sometimes it's just changing yourself and changing the people around you by being a positive influence on them. And sometimes it's greater than that. And you just kind of have to identify your own Voldemort. And sometimes it's not a person. Sometimes it's not a Voldemort. Sometimes it's whatever it is. Check out Harry Potter. Read, learn about Severus Snape. That's backwards, but you can tell what it is. This is a great box set. It's cool. I'm happy I have it. Hopefully I will be able to give it to my kids one day, and they can enjoy the magic that is the world of Hogwarts and Harry's realm. That's all I have to say about that. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna do more of this. I want to do more literature-based stuff. Consider this a music and literature channel. It's not pretentious though. Have a good Monday. Bye.